week, everyone. Good morning and welcome to 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations. That's what we do on Business Morning. I'm Ini John Mekwa, starting off as usual from the global space where oil prices sustained declines on Monday after OPEC Plus agreed to another large production hike in September, with concerns about a slowing economy in the United States, which is the world's biggest oil user. That is also adding to the pressure. So let's look at the numbers this morning. We see a drop of about 40 cents on Brent, bringing the price under $70 this morning, $69.27 a barrel. WTI is also down more than 0.5%, and that's about 37 cents, bringing that price to $66.96 a barrel after both contracts closed about $2 a barrel lower. On Friday, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, they had their meeting and they agreed to raise oil production by 547,000 barrels per day for the month of September. And that's the latest in a series of accelerated output hikes to regain market share, citing a healthy economy and low stockpiles as reasons behind that decision. The move, in line with market expectations, marks a full and early reversal of OPEC Plus's largest tranche of output cuts, plus a separate increase in output for the United Arab Emirates, amounting to about 2.5 million barrels per day. That's about 2.4% of world's demand. Here in Nigeria, data from half-year 2025 results for telcos released by both MTN Nigeria and Airtel Nigeria shows that subscribers on both networks spent a total of 2.53 trillion naira on voice and data services in the first half of this year, and that represents 50.9% increase from the 1.68 trillion naira recorded in the corresponding period of 2024. The figure reflects rising consumer spending on telecommunications driven by tariff reviews. Increased smartphone penetration is also adding to that, as well as sustained network investment by the two largest mobile network operators in the country. MTN Nigeria generated 2.12 trillion naira in voice and data revenue between January and June this year, marking 55.7% increase from the 1.36 trillion recorded at the same period last year, while Airtel Nigeria recorded a total of $298 million in data and voice revenue during the same 6-month period. Electricity now. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, that's the NERC, has officially transferred regulatory oversight of the electricity market in Nasarawa State to the State Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the announcement was made via NERC's official X handle. This development is in line with the amended Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the provisions of the Electricity Act 2023, which empowers states to regulate electricity generation, transmission and distribution within their board boundaries. According to NERC, Abuja Electricity Distribution PLC has been directed to incorporate a new subsidiary, AEDC, SubCo, to take over interstate electricity supply and distribution operations in Nasarawa State. The company is expected to complete this incorporation within 60 days from August 4, 2025. Upon completion, AEDC SubCo must obtain a license from the Nasarawa electricity regulator to operate legally within the state. NERC states that all regulatory and operational handovers should be concluded by February 3, 2026. The Commission emphasizes that while states now have the right to regulate intrastate electricity market, it will retain its role as a central regulator overseeing inter- and international electricity generation, transmission, trading, and systems operation. From Nasarawa to Ogun State, where the government is assuring members of the business community of favorable policies, reforms, and other enablers towards ensuring improved ease of doing business in the state. The State Commissioner of Industry, Trade and Investment, Adeshola Shufela, who represented the governor at the public session of the 40th Annual General Meeting of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, commended the resilience and support by members of the association in overall success recorded by the administration in critical areas of development. Ogun State government officials are meeting with some executives of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. The meeting seeks to explore opportunities and challenges which manufacturers have been facing in the state and how to solve them.
Regulated agencies of government should also be mindful of the debilitating impact of the inordinate and pervasive charges imposed on manufacturing industries. A case in point is the persistence of the Financial Reporting Council in making untoward demands on our members. This is in contravention of the presidential approval for a pause on the implementation of Section 3 of the FRC Amendment Act 2023 and to cap annual dues for qualifying unlisted public interest entities at a maximum of 25 million naira.
Reacting to some of the observed challenges in doing business in the state Commissioner for Industry, Trade and Investment assures manufacturers of more robust policies and reforms to create a win-win situation.
The issue of taxes, levies, trying to harmonize and consolidate them so that we don't have these incidences of double taxation and increasing cost of doing business. We are approaching it and we are also committed to it. The good thing is that the signal also from the federal government, who also operate in that fiscal space, is that of harmonization, is that of efficient tax administration that does not put so much burden, not only on the corporates, but also on individuals. And we are also taking the cue from that. So we'll see some action and you'll be able to see some level of reduction in terms of incidences of taxation and levies.
As part of suggested solutions, manufacturers are asking legislations compelling government ministries, departments and agencies to patronize made-in-Nigeria goods to decongest unsold goods in warehouses occasioned by current reduction in the purchasing power of consumers. The National Credit Guarantee Company. Last week, we saw that they shared their initiative aimed at de-risking lending and expanding access to finance for underserved sectors. With 100 billion initial capital, the company say they will provide partial credit guarantees to cover a portion of potential loan defaults, thereby reducing the risks for lenders and encouraging increased credit availability. Now, obviously, this cannot be done without data. That's why you have that information in front of you, because if there has to be de-risking of loans, then of course there has to be data, and that's where credit reporting comes in. According to CRC, there are about 33 million Nigerians that have been captured so far. There have been about, I think, 10 million searches that have been done, and other information. Well, thankfully, we have the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of CRC Credit Bureau right here in the studio to tell us more about what they've been doing and how they can help make this work. Talking about credit guarantee, we have Dr. Tunde Popola right here in the studio. Dr. Popola, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us right here.
Good morning. Nice being with you this morning.
Yeah. I wonder if there's been an update. I think it was for 2024, earlier this year, on your database, you had 33 million Nigerians. Is that still the number? Do you have an update?
Oh, yeah. So things are happening very fast and very, very positively in Nigeria. As at last June 2024, it was actually 41 million consumers that are on the Credit Bureau database. But now by June 2025, that data has moved to 50.5. So that means in 1 year, additional around 9 million Nigerians have benefited from one form of credit or the other. And that's at the consumer level. So you can see that a lot of things are happening in that space. Most of them, taking place through the micro lenders, the fintechs, and the new initiative by a lot of commercial banks who also are now having subsidiaries that are acquiring or floating fintechs to be able to just focus of the credit. So we have that going on. For me, that means that if you look at the adult population, bankable population of Nigeria is around 120 million. So if 51 or 50.5 are already there, that means over 40% of adult population in Nigeria are already in the credit space. I've taken one loan or the other in the last 2-3 years. And for me, that's something that is very positive compared to what we used to have before. I think the area we still have significant issue is on the small businesses. Because as at June this year, just around 2 million businesses have had access to credit in the last 2 years or so. And when you look at the SMEDAN data that say we have almost 40 million MSMEs in Nigeria, that is like a drop in the ocean. So that is the area that we need to do a lot more work, because the rate at which access to credit for them is growing is really very low, it's slow, compared to the rate at which access to credit is growing for consumers, who are me and you, in the economy. If we are growing the way we are growing for consumers, that's already almost translating to almost 1 million new people joining the credit space in Nigeria. And that is going to help the economy to grow, is going to empower families, is going to enhance productivity, and then lead to creation of jobs. But then the businesses also need to be ready, because people who are taking these loans will have to spend them. It's for consumption of one thing or the other. And if they are going to do that, it has to be through the small businesses and the large businesses. Most Nigerian businesses are small businesses anyway, so they should be ready to have that. And that's, I think, the gap that we still have.
So I'd like to dwell on why, the pace is slow for businesses compared to individual consumers and all of that. But first of all, help me clarify. You said there are about 50.5 million already captured at the Credit Bureau. Is this like a national register, or is this a CRC number?
This is CRC number, but CRC is the largest credit bureau, so it can be relied upon, because what happens is that all banks in Nigeria are on the database of CRC. All commercial banks, all microfinance banks, a lot of micro lenders are there. So we can use that to say that, okay, maybe the other two bureaus also will have numbers, because these numbers will be duplicated where we have the same number of customers. But we have over 2,000, businesses and financial institutions and other businesses submitting data to CRC. So it's a huge, conglomerate of a number of institutions that are submitting data to CRC. That's why today, in reality, that's probably the biggest data you can have in any credit bureau in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, so CRC has its 50.5. And then, so now let's talk about the 2 million businesses have had access to credit in the last 1 year, I believe you said. So what's making the access to credit for businesses more difficult than individuals? Is it the requirement or what?
Yeah, so it's the requirement. Don't forget that when we talk about credit, we have to talk about capacity to repay the loan and the willingness to repay the loan. How do you know capacity? The banks will have to provide the customers. They have information asymmetry. What we call information asymmetry has to do with that they don't know so much about these businesses, because a lot of these businesses don't still have the kind of information they will need to have to be able to provide them and know whether they have the capacity to take the loans. You will recall that even for the loans that are, intervention funds by the Bank of Industry, they had a 75 billion loan as a line for small and medium enterprises. As we speak today, they've taken just around 2 billion out of that. So there's a lot of gap there. And so we need to be able to find a way to get our small businesses to be structured and to be in the banking space. You first of all have to to have an account with a bank before we can even be talking about access to credit for you in a financial institution. And now when you have that, the issue then has to be with what's the level of formality of your business. Do you have some basic structure that I can be comfortable with as a lender to give you loan? Do you have some level of collateral? And collateral, will maybe begin to talk about that when we realize that now government is doing a lot in that regard, and that's where the credit guarantee and some other initiatives come into place. But first of all, SMEs have to make themselves ready for credit by making themselves feasible by approaching and doing transactions with banks, doing transactions in the name of the business, not in their personal name, have some level of structure, have accounting records, have audited accounts, these are basic information that will give some level of comfort to lenders to be able to say, yes, at least I can have some level of idea of who this person is, which this business is, and then can begin to see, do they really need loan? If they do need loan, how much do they need? In what way do they need it? And how can I help them to package that loan so that it can benefit them and they also can repay the loan? So where bank are not sure of repayment, then it becomes an issue. And I think that is still a major gap that we are seeing even for intervention funds. Because those intervention funds by Bank of Industry, it also have to be guaranteed by the bank that they are using, that they will bring back the money. So it's more or less saying that don't give that loan to anyone unless you can get it repaid. If you cannot get it repaid, then you still have responsibility to bring it back.
So I know that some banks, they have maybe some desks for small businesses. They help to train them on all of these things. But I wonder if there are more intentional steps to get them, in the right path. Because even with the tax reforms, we're looking for how to capture some of those informal businesses. And these are the processes, that can make them formal, giving them a structure. But I wonder whose responsibility should really be, to get them to be structured.
Okay, so it's all of us. Government has a role to play. The businesses themselves have a role to play. The business management organizations, the BMOs, also have a role to play. For government, I think there should be incentives. Incentives to help them to say, if you do A, B, C, D, then you get E, F, G. So that kind of thing can help them to say, okay, if you are structured, if you have documentation, if you have audited account, then maybe you can get your loan at a single interest rate. That will be an incentive for them to do that. If you can pass all your transactions through the banking system, that will help you to get ABCD. Even in terms of taxation, it can say, okay, if you do this and do this, this is the kind of tax exemption that you can have. That's for government. Now, I think we should also encourage a lot of them to belong to business management organizations, to associations.
Or
at the association level.
I know they do a lot of cooperatives now.
Yeah, but cooperatives may, okay, so you have like FCCI, for instance, in Lagos. That's a Chamber of Commerce, okay? That kind of forum, you can benefit a lot. And I think those are the kind of institutions that I think can do a lot more to attract as many as possible. And if you realize also that they have taking themselves into sectors, subsectors. You have the mining sector, you have the agriculture sector, you have transportation. So if you have all of these associations doing all of that, businesses believe they can benefit, either because they can have new ideas by engaging with other people, or there's capacity building for them, or they can even have access to market. And of course, even have access to credit that we are talking about. If they belong to such association, then that will propel them and incentivize them to be able to join such associations. I think that also is something that we have to do. I always believe that the private sector economy will have to be driven by private sectors. The government will be an enabler, like they have been trying to be, but we ourselves as private sector operators, we have to find a way to ensure that we stimulate ourselves to be able to have access to beautiful things that government may bring to us, like all these single-digit interest rates we are talking about.
Yeah, so how involved are you in this credit guarantee program of the government? Because it sounds really interesting. I mean, they have a lot of money, 100 billion naira initial capital.
Yeah.
I can imagine how many small businesses can benefit from this. But of course, for it to be sustained, there has to be the data that will ensure that, because there was a data that came out of Kenya that there was increase in credits to the private sector, and there was also increase in purchase of cars. I'm sure that's not what we want. So you need data to be able to follow up and ensure that the capital is being used for what it's supposed to be, so that it can be repaid for other people to also access it.
Yeah, so that's where the bureaus have come handy. Already, like I told you this morning, we'll have at least 2 million businesses in the database already. That's for those who have taken one credit or the other. And you realize that among the 50.5 million Nigerians who have taken credit as well, most of them own businesses. Some of them actually probably borrow for their businesses. Okay, because most of them are sole proprietorship. They are one-man businesses, and you can't separate them from their business. So most of them take that, like the loan they take, to be able to fund their businesses. So I think that's the starting point for us, and I think that's the starting point for the National Credit Guarantee Company as well. Don't forget they are a guarantee, entity. The lenders will still be the one to do the lending, and in doing the lending, the guarantee company is not guaranteeing them the 100%; it's guaranteeing them 60%. So which means they still have to profile those businesses, and in doing that, they come back to the bureau, and that's the link. So the credit bureaus still become the versatile, repository where they have to approach to see who has already benefited, what has been the behavior over time for those who have benefited, and to also know those who have never benefited. Because if your name is not in the bureau, and the bureau have data of all the banks in Nigeria, it then means we have never benefited from a formal financial system. That they have to take differently. But that also can then help for them to really go in there and say, okay, we can take a bet on this particular company, since we know that if we give the loan and he refuses to pay, at least there's a 60% guarantee of the loan coming by. You won't lose everything. So that will affect. It will take them to be more bullish in terms of granting credit. It will take them to really water down the risk profile, the risk, risk profile of themselves, to say, okay, before we say you should have ABCD, now we can have only ABC. Okay, the D we can deal with because there's some level of comfort that's already provided for us. That's the link between the bureaus and the. So once those people begin to take the loan, then those new data will begin to come to the bureau, and that's where we can see the increase, the surge that we have been looking for all this while. So it's a very good thing. And don't forget that also will help to also say, okay, collateral requirement, which is also a big deal for SMEs, will also be tamed somehow, because there will be some level of consideration on that regard. They also pricing is also a major issue for small businesses when it comes to loans. So where the lenders believe that they have some level of comfort as to repayment, the risk element, the risk pricing of the risk will come down a bit, and we expect that to also bring down relatively the interest rate regime as we go into this scheme.
So when businesses, individuals approach a lender for facility, I'm sure they ask for the purpose.
Yes.
Is there a follow-up as to let's know if that purpose was really, used for it? Is there anything like that?
Yes, because there is. If you apply for a loan, there are so many information you provide, including for what. So is it for working capital? Is it for acquisition of assets? Is it for export? Whatever you need, you provide it, because that would then enable them to tell you the type of loan that they are going to give to you, the tenor of the loan, and all other terms and conditions. Because you don't forget, in Nigeria, there are some level of loan categories that CBN has given opportunity of moratorium to those who benefit from it. So if you're taking a Greek loan, for instance, there's some level of moratorium before you begin to repay. So they will have to provide that. So once they provide that, the banks follow up through what we call portfolio monitoring. They monitor that portfolio. Say you take a loan for 12 months, every 3 months, the law says they should check you up every 3 months to say, are you still in line? Have you disbursed the money for the purpose you took it from us? Are you repaying your loan? Have you taken another loan somewhere? Are you struggling? Can we repackage the loan? Can we restructure? And so on and so forth like that. So they do follow up. Don't forget, once banks also have very good credit customer, they want to keep on servicing that customer. So even only for the purpose of determining should we give more opportunity to this person, because in the process of relating with you, they see more opportunities of how they can help your business. So deploying additional form of loan, or even giving you capacity. That's why today a lot of those banks are doing capacity building for SMEs. Some targeted at specific sectors, some targeted even at gender, women in business. They build their capacity. You see that happening in a lot of these banks. So that's the way it is today.
So how close are we here in Nigeria to a time when I want to take a mortgage, for instance, and I can present my credit rating, and that can, serve as a requirement. Exactly. How close are we to that part?
We are very close because
Like
we now have
5
credit
years?
score. No, we have, we are there already. It's just for us to, like I told you, we have 50.5 million Nigerians. All those ones have credit scores already. So, and for mortgages, scoring is very important for lenders. They want to know your score. That will help them to determine whether they should give you, under what terms and conditions, the interest rate they should give you, and all of that. So, to the extent that we have over 50 million Nigerians already having credit scores, that tells you how that at least 40% of bankable population or adult population are already in that position. I think what stops a lot of people is the income. The income level is still very low for a lot of Nigerians. And so if you take a mortgage or an auto loan, how do you repay? And so that capacity to repay is what can be a mitigating factor. I mean, a factor that will not allow them to give you the loan, because you also have to present your income statement to say, yes, I have this. And you remember today now, if you want to build anything, you probably need at least 50 million or so. 50 million over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, how much does that come to in a month? And then with your salary or the income you have, will it be able to get you the capacity to keep on servicing the loan and repaying the principal? So that is where we are today. I think it's very, for me, our cup is half full. Okay, it's not half empty, because a lot of people now are in the credit space. And more and more.
It's the purchasing power now that we need to balance up.
Exactly. We need to enhance the income of Nigerians for them to be able to benefit.
Or we have more low-cost housing, real low-cost housing.
I believe architects can design.
Not the government low-cost housing. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Tunde Kokola, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of CRC Credit Bureau. Thank you for your time and views.
Thank you.
All right, now, the federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to transform Nigeria's agricultural landscape through the establishment of special agro-industrial processing zone across the country. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony of the Oyo State Agribusiness Industrial Hub in Ijaye, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, says that the vision to build special agro-industrial processing zones across the country would restore Nigeria's dignity, unlock vast agricultural potentials, and create opportunities for all.
A bold step towards industrial growth and agricultural renewal is unfolding in Oyo State. Once a quiet farm settlement, the Ijaye community, established over 7 decades ago, has been reimagined as the site of a modern agro-processing zone. Rising from the old soil is a new vision modeled after the successful Fashola Agribusiness Hub. Governor Seyi Makinde's administration is expanding its agricultural footprint, transforming farming into a business-driven engine for economic development. The Ijaye Agribusiness Industrial Hub in Akinyele local government area is the latest milestone in that journey.
Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator.
At a groundbreaking ceremony, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, described the project as a federal government-backed initiative under the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone, SABS. He says it will energize local industries, create jobs, and uplift farmers.
Today's event exemplifies the spirit of partnership and shared vision that is vital to our nation's progress. The SAPZ initiative is one of the cornerstones of the Renewed Hope Agenda championed by our President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. A vision rooted in restoring Nigeria's dignity, unlocking our vast potentials, and creating opportunities for every citizen.
In his keynote address, Governor Makinde says the rapid success of the Fashola model is proof that Ijaye will soon witness similar transformation. He reaffirms his commitment to establishing agribusiness hubs across all zones of the state before his tenure ends.
Let today's event be a reminder to every citizen of Oyo State. Governance is not theory, it is action. And when we say we will deliver, we mean it.
Also speaking, AFDB President Dr. Akinwumi Adesina praises the hub's potential to reduce post-harvest losses, boost employment, and stimulate rural economies.
Our goal is very clear, is to reduce massive post-harvest losses, develop logistics and improve linkages between farm production, agro-processing and value addition, transform rural economies, and of course to create jobs.
Welcoming guests earlier, the Director General of the Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency, OISADA, Debo Akonde, projects that the initiative will generate over 100,000 jobs and support more than 500,000 families.
ATC at Fashola, this all will be state-built and private sector managed. The establishment of 2 other agribusiness industrial hubs will host over 40 agricultural industries, cumulatively employing directly and indirectly over 100,000 people.
Other dignitaries and development partners, including Dr. Simeon Ehui of RITA, are optimistic that the project will foster a thriving agricultural value chain and strengthen the foundation for a prosperous investment-ready Oyo State.
RITA was proud to support the first agribusiness hub at Fashola. We are ready to do the same in Erua, and we are here again committed to supporting this journey in Ijaye, both as a technical partner and as a trusted source of leadership.
In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Excellency.
The Ijaye Hub is more than an infrastructure project. It's a symbol of strategic growth, national partnership, and a new era of agro-industrial possibilities. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
And staying around agro there, Nigeria boasts the second largest chicken population, in Africa, with an estimated 180 million birds. The industry produces a large volume of meat and eggs annually, though local production currently only meets about 30% of total demand. And of course, this gap is worrying. 70% has to be imported. And this gap between supply and demand represents significant opportunities for growth in the poultry sector. To deepen this challenge, according to available statistics made available by the Poultry Association of Nigeria, in the first half of 2024 alone, over 30% of farms shut down. So it's even more problem across Nigeria. And since then, almost on a daily basis, the association says that farmers are deserting the industry for other lucrative businesses. That is worrying, especially if you like poultry. The children need egg for growth. Everybody loves chicken, I want to assume. Well, let's find out what's going on and perhaps how we can block some of that 70% gap there with the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of FACO West Africa, Femi Adelayo. He's right here in the studio. Mr. Adelayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Good to have you here. So it's a worrying number that we have there, or perhaps as that data, is it better now? Only 30% of demand is being met with local production in the poultry industry.
Well, I think it's better. I mean, the numbers are high. They're still high, but it's way more than 30% now. In the past year, for example, the price of raw materials has come down significantly.
That would be mostly feed.
Yes, the raw materials for feed. I mean, it hasn't quite translated to feed as much as we would like it yet. For one or two reasons, but the price of eggs has come down by 10% according to PAN itself, and so we're checking the market. We're looking at the systems to ensure that happens more. There are middlemen in that system. Of course, they like to go for profit most of the time, but from the farmers, you know, the real players, the price of the production has come down a bit. So it's not 30, 70 anymore, but it's still...
Perhaps it's...
I don't want to give a number to it.
Okay.
I don't want to give a number to it, but I'll say that it's not as bad as it was. Even the part of what comes in, if you talk about it, really it's not official statistics. Because even the gap that comes there are often illegal, importation of poultry, and I believe that everybody is doing what they can.
What do you mean by legal importation?
Smuggling. So if you go to the market sometimes, you see Nigerian chicken, and then you see other types that are clearly not done in Nigeria. So how do they get into the country? Is an area I believe that we can look at. It's constantly getting better. Before, when there was the closure of the borders, which many of us don't necessarily agree with, there was a reduction in those type of poultry products. The Nigerian poultry farmer had a lot more opportunity, but then we still need to feed more people. I'll give you an instance. If you look at the price of a kilo of poultry right now, it's expensive for the average Nigerian. It's almost as expensive as if you were actually getting it in US, because I compared the price of a kilo of poultry in Nigeria in probably a store, and then you would look at it, the global prices in, say, in the US, and they're not too far apart if you use a dollar conversion. So the prices need to come down.
So is it the middlemen who are driving these prices up? Because I think I heard you say from the farmer's perspective, the prices have come down.
I wouldn't say the middlemen only. There are a lot of factors, the multiplicity of factors. It's the raw materials. The raw materials prices have come down, but they are not low enough, right? There is the cost of producing this, the transportation, the storage system, the getting it into the feed mills, the productions. In fact, in feed production, you have that some of the inputs are still imported, really. The equipment are imported, the cost of power, the cost of getting it to the market before it gets to the farmer. Now, when the farmer actually produces, the farmer also has to have their own cost. So even at farm gate prices, the prices are low enough. When it gets to you, the end consumer, that differential, right, is really what's important. So sometimes the differential can be, if it's 4,000, 5,000 at the farm gate, you can get it with you at maybe 6,000, 5,000, 5,300 can come to you at 6,000 and more. So someone somewhere, has that differential.
So should we all get to the farm gates? Yeah, if we have like 2,000, 3,000 differential, that's a lot. And this is something that's being done wholesale. That means that middleman is making a lot of profit.
Well, that is true. But you know that everyone in business is doing business for different reasons. The farmers, the truth about it is that everybody can't get to the farm gate. It's absolutely impossible. And farmers can't actually access the end consumer. Some farmers do, but most of the other farmers don't have the structure or the systems in place to actually reach the end user. So what we would always appeal to all players in that sector to be as fair as we can to one another, so that the cost of living can come down. Because really, if you look at the global indices in many countries, the price of eggs is something that people consider as how well the economy or the countries or the systems are doing from eggs. We don't do that much in Nigeria.
I agree with you, because I know when the tariff issue started and President Trump started chasing away the migrants, one of the factors that were used to measure price in the US was eggs.
Yes, eggs.
Eggs was a major one. Eggs are now expensive because, of some of those actions. And that was like a factor for conversations in the US.
Yeah, so all over the world, really, eggs are some form of metrics on how, because they consume eggs way more than we do. But even in other countries, there are other factors that are at play. Disease, the effect of skilled workers or unskilled workers. So there are
farmers still leaving the poultry space?
Oh yes, farmers are leaving the poultry space. But at FACO West Africa, one of the things we try to do is to encourage farmers, encourage players in the industry to stay and weather the storm. Because as the prices come down, right, we can get more more benefits from the work we do. Also, there is a need to automate and to mechanize so that we can actually produce more, right? If a farmer is producing 5,000, has 5,000 birds, it's fine. But if a farmer has 50,000 birds, they can produce more eggs. At the scale of economies, they can bring down the price of the eggs, which is something we do quite well at FACO West Africa, encouraging, empowering, and making farmers earn more for their investments.
What about innovation for preservation, maybe new products around the poultry produce as a way of storage and preservation? Because I do know there was a time farmers were burying eggs and things like that, and then sometimes you have the chicken themselves being affected by diseases and so. What about innovation around that?
So there's a lot of innovation going on. I mean, in the past, we've worked quite a lot with trying to get out production and systems and installations for egg powder production. I mean, egg powder production is absolutely a game changer. I mean, an area
but that seems to be catching on slowly. This conversation started a bit ago.
Yes, it did.
But it doesn't seem to be catching on very fast.
Yes, it did. And there are a few factors affecting that. One is finance. One is the capacity or the intentionality to scale. Because if you notice, many times in Nigeria, we tend to like to do things, oh, just small, give me a little size. But really, with the population getting to 400 million in about 2050 or more, we have to do the big projects, right?
That's bigger risks. People are scared.
Yes. But that's also what we do well, is to ensure that people, their processes and trainings and shifting of mindsets to be able to ensure that we can actually do these things. The risks are big, but the rewards are great. But the thing is, what makes sure that the risks are mitigated a lot more is to have proper trainings, proper systems, proper mindsets shifted to ensure that you can do this. Another thing is the type of what we put into the birds. Like in Europe and in the US, many times you have that many of the egg powders don't have antibiotics inside them. So we have to change, the way we do things over time. Do we have enough birds to actually service, that egg powder plant? Because sometimes it's like no pun intended, the case of the chicken and the egg. Because if you say, look, I'm putting an egg powder plant, are there enough birds to give you enough eggs to actually have the egg powder plant? But once we have egg powder plants strategically located, well managed, well maintained, processes followed, I believe that it will drive more farmers to produce more eggs. But the root of it, really, maize, soya, feed, we have to fix that. So all that value chain means that when there are enough eggs, farmers are not burying eggs. It's a cycle. You have more people coming in there. The price of eggs has gone up, or the price of feed has come down, farmers get into it. And then there's a glut. Moving on, when the price of eggs crash, and there's a glut, farmers leave that system or something like that. So then there's a shortfall, and then it goes up and down. But the things that level these things to a certain extent is preservation, is processing, is availability of the eggs for a longer shelf life.
So innovation needed right there.
Absolutely.
So before we let you go, help us to identify which one is Nigerian chicken and which one is imported one? Because, I mean, we all hear, oh, there's Nigerian chicken, there's the bigger one, there's the one that's, you know that a lot of chemical has been used to preserve it and all of that. But a lot of people actually do not know what to look out for to know which one is Nigerian, which one is healthy, and which one should I avoid.
Well, quite a lot of processors now, and I'm quite aware that we're working a lot with, we work with NAFDAC, they're working with SON, we're part of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, we're part of the Feed Industries Practitioners of Nigeria, we're part of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, and in this ecosystem, there is an increase in checks and balances to ensure that you have for example, if you're producing chicken, you put the logo made in Nigeria, so we know.
But we don't see a lot of that.
Oh, there are quite a number. There are quite a number.
In the open market?
Well, maybe not in the open market.
Yeah, but
really.
that's where majority of Nigerians. I mean, so what's wrong with putting it out there?
So we need to get that into the open market.
So that's your association's job.
Yeah, it's one of our. it's one of the things that we can do.
Yeah.
But there has to be a handshake of all the players. Look, if you go to the market and you tell the market woman, for instance, look, I want Nigerian chicken. I mean, most of the time they'll be honest with you. Oh, this is from here and this is from there. And some of them are really looking very big.
The horrible ones.
Yes. They're really...
Are those the Nigerian ones?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, most of the time. You know, but you say, if you tell them I want Nigerian chicken, if you go to a party and then you insist that, look, I want to eat Nigerian chicken, you know.
I don't think a lot of people listen to you at the party.
No,
the party.
Yeah, but look,
but maybe in the market, if, you say, oh, the Nigerian ones are whitish, and things like that. I'm sure people, because everybody wants to eat healthy. You don't want to eat chemicals.
Yes, there's no, you don't have those, how do you say it? Oh, those markers, apart from the, sometimes the sizes. Sometimes you would see clearly, just from your trained view, that look, this thing looks, rather strange, big and, pumped with all kinds of chemicals and hormones in there. But Nigerian chicken doesn't have that. Most of us rarely, because there's quite a lot of regulation in what goes on into the feed, what goes finally the output. But many of those that are smuggled are really unsafe. So really the thing is, I believe, advocacy from the common person at the market is to say, look, I want Nigerian chicken. And if enough people say to the market woman, look, I want Nigerian chicken, I want Nigerian chicken, oh, I want chicken from Nigeria, it forces a demand. Because people give, the marketers give what they believe the consumer wants.
The consumer will ask for, yeah.
So absolutely, that's the way to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time and those tips. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of FACO West Africa, Mr. Femi Adelayo. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Back is still Business Morning here on Channels Television. We have Ladi walking in now, and I heard that Ladi says he likes Orobo chicken.
Yes, I like soft chicken. But I like live chicken.
Better.
I prefer live chicken.
Yeah, that's the best, because at least you can trace its origin.
Yeah.
And you know that there's no chemical to fatten it or anything like that.
Let's stop putting chemicals in our food. Can we stop that? All right, let's see what's happening in the global space at this point. We see things to watch at the global market this week. U.S. factory orders, that's in focus. The markets are awaiting fresh insights into America's manufacturing momentum. That's today, when the U.S. Consensus Bureau releases the June factory orders report, along with revised durable goods data. Why this matters, a volatile baseline, maize factory orders surged by 8.2% month-on-month, reversing a prior 3.9% slump, but orders, excluding transportation, were flat at just 0.2%, a modest reading that may signal soft core demand. For the Fed, the implications are the orders released will help clarify whether recent inflation-adjusted weakness is firming or fading, shaping expectations for the Federal Reserve's rate policy and market sentiment. Also today, earnings from Palantir, AMD, McDonald's, the pharma sector, that's in the spotlight. We see Palantir Technologies, they showed their earnings reports. That's for today. It kicks off the week for investors as the firm continues to trade near record highs, lifted by optimism about AI spending trends. Then we also have tomorrow, we'll be watching for economic data releases from the U.S. That's the U.S. trade deficit. This comes as tariffs are remaking the landscape of international trade. While factory orders could help, show whether tariffs are helping spur a rise in domestic manufacturing in the U.S. so far. We'll find out if that's the case. They also have key earnings on Tuesday from Macro Devices, Caterpillar, and Pfizer and BP. That's coming up for Tuesday. Then Eurozone retail sales on Wednesday, key gauge of consumer spending. A strong reading would support growth expectations and could temper calls for rate cuts. A weak data could raise talks of imminent ECB action. On the monetary policy side, also in the U.S., after 2 members of the Federal Open Market Committee voted last week to cut interest rates, investors will be tracking public comments from San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly, Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, and St. Louis Fed President Alberto Musalem for more insight into what's next for the central bank in the U.S. We also have key earnings on Wednesday. McDonald's, the report is on tap for Wednesday, and it's due as the burger chain king there has reported that traffic from middle-income households that was down amid lagging consumer confidence. Investors will be looking out for earnings of Novo Nordisk and the Sony Group. For Thursday, we'll get initial jobless claims. That's in the U.S. A closely watched weekly snapshot of layoffs covering the week ended August 2nd. Economists surveyed expect filings to edge up modestly to around 221,000 compared to 218,000 in the prior week. Also, U.S. Fed rep there, that's Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic. He's going to be speaking on that Thursday. And we have key earnings this week, key earnings in the U.S. ConocoPhillips, Eli Lilly. We see Eli Lilly report there set for Thursday. It follows cuts to its profit outlook in May against the backdrop of high research and development costs. Then for Friday, we have the St. Louis president there, Alberto Musalem, that's the Fed president for that state, and he's going to be talking about what investors should look out for this week. All right, let's look at what's hot today. At least 4 Aframax-class tankers, including EU and UK-sanctioned vessels like the Achilles and Elite, they successfully unloaded millions of barrels of Russian Urals crude at Indian ports over the weekend. That's according to reports from Bloomberg. Despite intensified efforts by Washington and Brussels to stem Indo-Pacific flows of Russian oil, New Delhi has yet to issue any formal directive banning crude imports from Russia, even as Indian Oil Corporation there switched to non-Russian cargoes, securing some 7 million barrels from the U.S., Canada, Abu Dhabi, in response to U.S. sanctions and warnings there. A move that underscores India's tactical balancing between energy security and diplomatic pressure there. Now we see Turkey, their official consumer price index, that slowed sharply to 33.52% in July, down from 35.05% in June, under the consensus 34.05 estimate. The monthly increase of 2.06% also came in below forecasts as prices for housing, transport, and tobacco, those moderated. Now we see Turkey's producer price index, that rose 1.73% month-on-month, up 24.19% year-on-year. Still elevated, but a clear downward trajectory, what we're seeing there. Then we've taken on to Asia now. China Mobile confirmed today that it has acquired a 14.4% stake in one of Hong Kong's largest telecom operators, as Hong Kong Broadband Network, for 1.08 billion Hong Kong dollars. China's mobile Hong Kong arm purchased 213.6 million shares at about 5 Hong Kong dollars apiece from investment firm Twin Holdings. The purchase brings China Mobile's total stake in HKBN close to 30%. Then now on the Bitcoin purchases, now Metaplanet Inc. acquired an additional 463 Bitcoins, bringing the Japanese hoteliers turned treasury company's total stockpile to 17,595 coins. The company purchased 463 Bitcoin at an average purchase price of about 17.268 million yen per coin, with its total holdings now valued at around $2 billion. The company said in the filing today that Metaplanet is the world's 7th largest corporate Bitcoin holder behind Trump Media and Technology Group, and had pivoted into becoming a treasury in 2024. The U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed yesterday that he will announce the appointment of a new statistician in the coming days after he fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics last week. Trump had fired BLS Commissioner Erica McIntyre, accusing her of faking job numbers but providing no evidence of data tampering. So that's hot stories today. We can't have anyone without President Trump in the news at this point.
Yeah, Ladi. When I saw that President Trump fired the statistician because of job reports,
right,
I've just been trying to understand, okay, did she give a wrong number? Did she go out there and give...
Did he check, their methodology? And
exactly, and found something, and all of that?
I guess we'll find out at some point.
But in the coming days, because if not, then the new statistician is going to be in a hot seat.
Yeah.
Because you have to...
Just make sure the data is right.
President Trump, what number should I tell the world today?
Are you okay with this data?
Are you okay with this? All right, thank you, Ladi. So, yes, last week the market, Nigeria's stock market was really good, was up more than 5%, and we hit many new highs, about closed at 141,000 level. We hope to see it. Anete Edet believes we should hit 150 this week or this month. We'll see how that prediction goes. But that's it on Business Morning today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Let's do it again tomorrow. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of the day.